welcome or welcome back. Today I am dressed a little bit more earthy and I have some design tools here in front of me because I'm going to see if I can apply my interior design knowledge to landscape design and create my dream backyard. But before we dive in, let's get real for a sec. I know that I have shared some design plans with you for my kitchen and my master bathroom, and I've started the makeover in this room you see behind me. I haven't finished it yet. And I just wanna say those projects are coming, but I've had a little bit of some mindset blocks around finances a little bit, but mostly around self-worth, and that has led to some procrastination patterns. I've overplanned, I've just been scared of doing things wrong or not being perfect and needing to control everything. I'm working through those and those projects will come, but with my backyard, I am really going to try to challenge those mindsets because it does not matter how perfectly I plan everything out. A tree does not care where you want a branch, and weeds don't care if you want them there or not. Mother Nature is going to take over regardless. So I'm gonna embrace imperfection and the concept of failing forward and learning as I go. But since the principles of landscape design from what I've seen around in my minimal research and all the garden shows that I watch, they seem pretty similar. So I'm gonna see if I can apply the knowledge that I have with interior spaces to an exterior one and bring you into the design process more rather than designing and then sharing the plans afterwards. So looking at what we've already got, it's a pretty good sized yard. I'm really happy with the size of it. Right now, it's mainly just a bunch of grass and some plants that were already here when we bought the house. We have a really great size painted wooden deck that does need a little bit of an update. And we've done a couple of things since we've moved in, but nothing super notable that I need to go through other than our fence that we added as soon as we moved in for our dogs. Now, just like I would for an interior project, I'm gonna look at the things that I cannot change, and I'm kind of gonna treat the exterior wall of the house and the fence as my walls. The yard itself is about 34 feet deep and then 40 feet wide. I have to account for the gate, which is along the back fence line. It's about 8 feet away, and then it's about 4 feet wide. And most of what can't change is along the exterior wall of the house. Over here, we have crawl space entrance. There is a landscaping bush here that provides nice privacy for the bedroom. We have our AC unit with a couple of plants in front of that that help block that. And then next to that is our cellar entrance. We have our propane tank. And then in between that is where our current deck is at. But if you watched my kitchen renovation plans, I talked about doing an addition where the deck is. I'm gonna, for now, because it'll be some time before we can put that addition in, just use the deck measurements for this. And then I have a big tree right about here that would be too expensive for us to move. So it has to stay. Plus, I love the shade that it provides for that half of the yard. And other than that, I may or may not keep some of the existing planting, but because they can be taken out, I'm just gonna leave them out for the time being. Now, another thing to consider before just jumping into the design is the most important thing, which is how the yard actually functions. For us, the main thing is our dogs. We have 3 precious little babies that have to go to the bathroom multiple times a day. So I need to maintain some of the lawn for them. And then on top of that, I would love for it to become a hobby of mine to do some gardening. So I would like to have plenty of areas to grow flowers and herbs. We'd like to host out there more. We have some friends that love to be outside, so serving the needs for hosting. And then also, we are on a corner lot backed up to the community areas of our neighborhood. So some more privacy would be nice. Now that I know what I'm working with and what I need from my yard, I can dive in to actually designing it. The easiest way I think to do that is going to be to treat this like a floor plan and use a bubble diagram to kind of zone it out for my different functions. I think it makes the most sense for the deck here to be entertainment. I know all along the house I need to maintain access. As far as being able to plant and do gardening, I think keeping that along the perimeters mostly. So let's just for now just say all of the perimeter is the garden section, which leaves still a good portion for the dogs to go to the bathroom. I do think another entertainment space would be nice because like thinking ahead a little, if the deck becomes an addition, I will then need a new entertaining space. So just kind of planning two could be nice. And I think the place that makes the most sense to do paving is right in front of where the cellar entrance is. So I'm gonna just make that another entertainment space. And then the rest of the yard I will leave for the dogs. I think zoning it out like that makes the most sense. Just a general map of how I need to move forward in my floor plan. And this is where in an interior project, you would add like the internal walls and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm gonna do, just not necessarily with walls, but with pathways, and start thinking about where I want plants to go and mapping out like hallways, which would be like your walking paths. And looking at the privacy aspect of this tree here provides privacy. On the other side of the fence, we have some HOA bushes. We have a neighbor who has a big tree that provides privacy on this side, as well as some bushes on our side that keeping could be nice to help with the privacy on that side. And eventually, I think I'd like to add a greenhouse. So that could go there where those bushes are. But for the time being, I think the bushes serve our functional purpose. So then I can see the gaps where I maybe need to add in some more privacy features. In this corner over here, last year we planted a fig tree, and I kind of did this with this purpose in mind because it's small now, but eventually it'll grow and fill in and provide privacy in that corner. So then really this tree here, I have it marked kind of small, but it actually covers this whole side of the house, gives us privacy. So I think maybe a taller plant here and maybe some taller plant back in this corner. I already planted a hydrangea there that'll get pretty big and kind of fill that in. So now I've addressed the privacy aspect, I can kind of plan my garden beds around that. So looking at some of the design principles and elements here, I'm really going to look at balance and flow, proportion and scale, and line, because everything so far other than the plants is super square. So we have a mix of rectilinear shapes and organic shapes and a bunch of straight lines, but I don't have any curvilinear shapes or curved lines in this. And I think my garden beds and my pathways would be a great way to do this. So starting here, I'm gonna plan this bed in the corner. I'm not uprooting this tree, so I'm gonna kind of make a little curvy shaped bed that maybe connects to my fence there. And I think doing some really dense planting around the whole perimeter could be nice. So maybe I'll just continue that on this whole side, maybe doing a little bump out, curving it around in this corner. And then I don't want to add any more in front of these bushes, so maybe that'll be a straight line with my bed perimeter, but that still feels pretty flat. So maybe with the paved patio that I want to add, maybe the border of that could kind of be irregular, and I'll kind of maybe connect it to the edge of the deck here. Oh, or I can stop here. I have some bushes right here already. So maybe from the edge of the deck here, I can do another raised bed and connect that back to my cellar, leaving room for planting all throughout here. And maybe then I can connect my paved patio there. And then maybe to have this feel a little bit more enclosed in like a room, maybe I'll do a little like kidney bean shaped raised bed and have an entrance into this paved area here. We know this is gonna be paved, so I'll just kind of add some texture in there. And maybe we want a pathway that connects it so I can walk all the way around my beds without walking through grass necessarily. And maybe we just follow the line of the garden bed, connect it here at the foot of the stairs, work our way around this bed. Maybe that's where the patio extends out to, and then over here we can have this path extend around as well and kind of loop back this way. So we have a path all the way around the garden, make that kind of a paved texture. And then maybe to further delineate that, I kind of nestle a rock in this corner with some kind of plants kind of planted around that. And then this area in the center where just the lawn is more condensed, so it's less to mow, and all of the dog business gets concentrated to the center where the grass is, would make it more easy to pick up instead of having all over and have to go search for it. So they still have the patio and the pathways to walk on and explore and play, but like their actual bathroom is more condensed just to the center, which could be nice. And then maybe, like I mentioned, for a greenhouse, I can kind of just add in an extra piece here. Those bushes take up a lot of space, so maybe I'll just make that an additional option for down the line. This way, from a bird's eye view, looking at this, the yard feels evenly balanced between entertainment spaces and yard wildscape spaces. Even though it's heavily planted along the outside, I've now incorporated some beds and stuff, and there is some planting in closer in the entertainment space. So the design element of repetition comes in, and there's planting kind of throughout that ties it all together, and then we'll repeat materials and colors. Now, I didn't fully dimension out the garden beds or anything like that. That's still a rough guideline, but I have a direction to go in for this next part. This is where we actually get into the aesthetic part of it and do the fun things like developing a mood board. Using this mood board from my kitchen renovation as a template, let's kind of start to gather some ideas here. Like everyone on the internet, I am obsessed with the idea of a cottage garden. I really love the dense planting style and really just how they incorporate stone and the hardscapes in with the florals. And then I already have a board for my greenhouse idea. So let's look through that and see if we can find any additional inspiration for the garden as a whole. I really love the ones with more of like an English feel that have a mix of stone and wood or stone and metal. So I'm gonna add that in. And then I also like when people like mixed in with the plants that are in the ground, they also incorporate planters with plants in them. So doing something like that just feels super cottagey to me. I've got my inspirational images and now I just need to do, I guess I could do a color palette, but it's just more of a natural, like I think the color palette of nature is kind of self-explanatory. So rather than a color palette, I think I'm gonna do a material palette for this one. Obviously, we want to incorporate natural elements like stone and wood and metal. And then as for the planting, I like the cottage aspect because it's not so like perfect and planned. And so I'm not going to like throw every color under the sun into it, but I think my main colors that I tend to be drawn to in a garden are purple and white. I think they look beautiful together, especially if you blend the textures of them. So I think that'll kind of be my staple repetitive colors with some others thrown in a way that makes sense. And then just like in an interior space, you want to have decor. So I'm thinking of what kind of yard ornaments or like focal points I could make. I kind of mentioned some medicinal herbs or like cooking herbs could be nice to have mixed in with my florals as well. With my deck and an additional entertainment space, I do have to think a little bit about outdoor furniture. I'm not going to focus too much on that in this video because I will be tackling my deck makeover here within the next few months. So we'll dive into that more when that project comes around. But I do want to consider that and think about some of the pieces I already have. And then as a part of the entertainment function, I'd love to find some kind of fireplace or chimney or something secondhand preferably. And here I have my mood board slash concept board. It's kind of two wrapped into one. It could definitely be refined a little bit more, but just to kind of get a general direction to go in and wrap my head around what's going to bring me the most joy and utility out of this space. I definitely want it to feel a little wild, very natural, welcoming and relaxing, just that like I could walk out there barefoot in the morning with a cup of coffee, deadhead some flowers while I'm still in my pajamas, just barefoot in the grass with my dogs running around living their little dreams. So I think this is a good jumping off point for that. The next step from here would be to actually go in and select materials. Now, this is going to be a little bit of an iterative process. It's not all going to happen at once. So I'm just kind of going to roughly do this, not make actual suggestions, but again, more general selections for the sake of this video and showing you the process. Like I said, the fence is kind of like the exterior walls of the space. So kind of comparing some other elements like I would to an interior element, I would maybe think my garden beds would kind of be like cabinets almost. So selecting my cabinetry finish, I think stone is going to give me that cottagey English feel without being too rustic. I feel like if I did wooden beds, it may clash a little bit more with the vinyl and feel a little bit more of like a farmhouse garden rather than like an English garden. And plus the exterior of my house is brick, so picking a complementary stone to my house builds that repetition in. And then maybe I also do the garden path out of pavers, maybe the same or like very similar stone. That way they kind of go together and it creates like the floor to the wall. So like the grass and the pavers is the floor, the paver kind of creating a hallway maybe. So then we have our walls and our flooring and some of our fixtures like our cabinets, if you want to say. And then we actually do have furniture, which would be our patio furniture and all of that that'll get mixed in. But that's not gonna be in the middle of the yard. So we gotta look at like decor, which I would say is our plants, would be our decor and our textiles. So I'm not gonna fully plan the horticultural elements at the moment with picking the actual plants, but like we can kind of just throw in our little board here, a couple of little things. And then we know in some areas we have bushes behind the fence and a tree coming over, so we can kind of throw that in just to get an idea of like the wildness, relaxedness of that. And then we could add in some of our decor elements like the potted plants along the path, that rock that I mentioned earlier nestled in the crook of the path at the corner of the yard with some little plants around that guy. And we kind of see how all of these natural elements work together. Now, of course, this doesn't show the wood elements that would be represented in the furniture, and our deck is currently painted, but I'm thinking of stripping off the paint and then sealing that and making that our wood element. And probably a greenhouse too, if I did eventually add that. I really like when the base is made of stone and then it's either wood or metal up top, like I mentioned earlier. So I would probably do something like that. Now, I know I haven't talked about lighting much, but that's another design element that it's great to work into your outdoor spaces. So primarily I would probably do some fence post cap lighting along my fence, and then as well as nestled in with the planting in the garden bed, do like some up lighting to get some cool shadows at night. This serves both a aesthetic and functional purpose aesthetically, it's just cool. It sets a vibe at night when you're hanging out there. It's just warm, and you can use it well into the evening on warm nights, especially if I add that fire element in, then it keeps it warm in addition to being lit up. Also, functionally, when my dogs go outside first thing in the morning or last thing at night, if it's still dark, I need to be able to see them. So it helps on both fronts, and is another element that when I get to that point, I'll dive into a little bit more, but I'm not too worried about planning that right now. Now, there's a lot more considerations that go into this. I could go in and like specifically source every single item, but this video would be a million years long. And my main goal was just to set a vision because, like I said, I'm gonna try not to overplan it and just go with what feels right, let nature guide me, and have that perfectly undone, messy, but still put together look in the same way that nature is beautiful but unkempt and wild at the same time. As far as the timeline on this, you can expect the first iteration of this here in a few weeks. I've actually already started on this, although I didn't have a clear design vision. Like, this was really me in real time putting the actual vision together. I kind of had some loose ideas in my head that I kind of jumped in on without doing any planning, and it's turning out great so far. So if you're not subscribed, please make sure to do so you don't miss when I start my cottage garden and build a raised bed in one corner of the yard. And that's kind of how it'll go from here on out. I'll do one section at a time as it's in the budget and as time allows, as I'm also balancing interior projects for you guys. And then the deck project, I want to do a full deck makeover this year. So those are the two main ones you can see that I have planned. I may tackle other things, but the raised bed and the deck, definitely subscribe and come back for those. And my interior projects like the sitting room and the bathroom and the kitchen, I'll be working concurrently on them, and that's the process I follow. I hope it translates well to outside. I just start by laying out a floor plan based on what I can and can't change, what the needs of a space are, gathering my inspiration, and then going into really looking at the sourcing and picking specific items and how I want the composition to come together using all of the design principles and elements. So I hope this emboldened you to design an interior or an exterior space. I hope you found this style of video helpful, bringing you into my design process. If you did, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I would love to bring you more into the design process. I just need to know what would be the most helpful for you. And if you have any tips for me on landscape design, please drop those below as well, because they would be very helpful. So don't forget to come back for the first iteration of my cottage garden. And until next time, I'm wishing you all my best. Before you go, if you would like help planning a makeover like this in a space of your own, please reach out to me at thegreaterhouse.com/contact for an interior design consultation. I would love to work with you and help you bring your vision together.